And Eileen, and it is my privilege to introduce to you today our speaker, Reverend Dr. Mignonne Pollard. And she is a Center for Spiritual Living licensed minister, has been a CSL practitioner for many years, and she graduated Emerson Theological Institute in 2020, completed additional classes at Home School of Spiritual Leadership in 2021. She's a staff minister at Center for Spiritual Awareness in West Sacramento. She teaches the CSL certified classes, develops workshops on self love, kicking love addiction, and attaining prosperity using the works of Catherine Ponder. In addition to her religious studies, she holds a Doctor of Education from Harvard University's Graduate School of Education in International Education. Her education pursuits have taken her to the countries of Zimbabwe, South Africa, South Korea, and Spain. And she believes in the principles of science of mind can change your life for the better. And without further ado, take it away.
Good morning, CSL Rockland County. It is such a pleasure to be here. It is my honor to be on this spiritual journey with you and to be with you on this very sacred day. Today is Mother's Day, and I'd like to explore the qualities of divine feminine that will help us move our lives in positive ways. And as Janice said previously, divine feminine is associated with intuition, wisdom, creativity. And if we know how to listen to that still small voice, and then how to act on that internal knowledge, if we know how to listen to, receive, and understand that direct revelation from God, I believe that we can improve our lives. It's this power of awareness, this deep listening. This is the help and the support that is needed to make the world a better place today. For us, listening and moving into action on that which we hear from the divine. You know, today's talk is inspired by this holiday. It's one of the few holidays that's not listed on the CSL holiday listing in the month of May. This Mother's Day. But this talk is sort of inspired by the original desire for Mother's Day. The founder, Anne Jarvis, founded this day in the 1800s. So I just want to do a brief note about the origins of Mother's Day, and then a little bit more about the divine feminine. So just a brief note. It was created in the 1800s by Anne Jarvis to bring together mothers to teach them about hygiene. You see, she had had so many children and she'd lost so many of those children to disease. And she created circles of women in the Appalachians to teach them about hygiene. But then the Civil War broke out and the tensions were so high, they were so unbearable between the communities. And I know right now I'm referring to Caucasian women and those types of communities, but it's the intention behind it that I think we need to hold on to, because Anne thought that mothers could get together to foster peace and reconciliation, and that Mother's Day was kind of a protest against war. It wasn't anything like what we have today. It was really a movement, first, to teach mothers about hygiene to save children, and second, as a way to preserve life of the young men and a protest against any type of war. She joined with Julia Ward Howe, who was the founder of the Girl Scouts. They got together and they said mothers could use this day for meditation on peace, for no more war. But when Anne died, her daughter took up the banner, and her daughter made this day the second day of May, and that is actually the day that Anne died. Her daughter Anna kind of turned this into a celebration of mothers. And before Anne died, Anne actually did a petition to rescind the holiday because it was no longer what she had originally intended. intended. It was no longer a holiday to promote peace, to promote health. But even as I tell you this history, I know that the intentions behind it were good, and that the God qualities that it exhibits are noble. So the daughter of Anne Jarvis, Anna, she didn't have any kids, and it became a celebration of mothers. White carnations came to represent mothers who had died, and pink and red carnations were for those who are living. But it's this archetype of mother that is so vivid in the human consciousness, and it is embodied in so many cultures throughout. And it is a representation many times of the divine feminine. So in honoring this day and using this idea of Mother's Day as a background, I wanted to explore the divine feminine and how it expresses itself in the world. And what can we learn from aspects of the divine feminine to make our lives a more fuller, prosperous journey? And this idea of the divine feminine predates modern Christian religion, as it's found in every culture. We state that we learn from all religious traditions and that there's one God, and there's many expressions of that God. So this month, I know Reverend Melissa is exploring divine doubt, but I know with certainty that we can learn and grow from examining aspects of divine feminine, because certainty is the opposite of doubt. And I also know, and I want to emphasize that, yes, there is one God, one energy that expresses in many ways. We know it as the divine feminine just as one way to understand God qualities as they express in our consciousness. Additionally, the divine feminine is found in both men and women. It's found all along the gender spectrum in all forms. The divine feminine is not limited to its expression in or as women. Like, for instance, the Hindu gods and goddesses, they are gender fluid. Like Kuan Yin, the Bodhisattva of compassion is depicted as both male and female. And across many cultures and eras, it shows a nature, this nature of compassion transcending gender. So just as the ancient and current gods transcend gender, so does mothering and motherhood. So today, whether you're a mother, whether you've mothered someone in your life, whether you've given birth, whether you've adopted, whether you have pet, whether you're a pet mom, however you have mothered or showed mothering, whether you're an auntie, a trusted sister, however it has done, however it is expressed in your life, that is what we are celebrating today. So just as you've shown compassion and understanding, if you've had deep intuitive knowing, then you've expressed the divine feminine. Today is your day. It's a celebration of creativity. It's a celebration of divine love. It's a love beyond understanding. It's unconditional love. It's a love that will cut you with the truth, like as embodied in Kali, the Hindu goddess. So this is a meditation on the certainty that there is certainly something for us to learn by looking at this expression. This idea of the power of the thought, this idea of the understanding of the divine feminine is one that a story came to me that I thought was absolutely perfect for this day. One day I was scrolling across the internet and I came across a story that's over 10 years old, but it's one that I don't recall hearing. It's a true story. And for me, it exemplifies the power of the mind. It shows the power of the mind. It shows the power of belief. It shows the power of unconditional love. It is about survival under the most unbelievable conditions. And I don't know if you've heard of this or if you remember this story, but it's a true story of a young girl named Bahia Barakai. She was 12 years old at the time, and she was the sole survivor of an airplane crash in 2009. Yemeni Airways Flight 626 crashed. It killed everyone aboard except for this one girl. And it was her belief that her mother was somehow home and safe waiting on her. It was her belief that her mother was a little upset that she didn't fasten her seatbelt. But it was this idea that kept her alive and afloat for 11 hours on the Indian Ocean as she bobbed in and out of consciousness. She survived these dark waters, clinging to debris with no life vest, with minimal swimming skills, driven by the belief that her mother had survived. She climbed onto a piece of debris and held on in these shark infested waters. And she's French, so most of it's in French. But I found an account from the Seattle Times that I just want to share a little bit of. So now, today, she would be 29 years old. But when Bakari was 12, she took a plane with her mother to go to Camaros off the Africa's eastern coast to attend a wedding. The plane departed from Paris. It made a stopover in the southern French city of Marseille, and then it landed in Sanaa. Barakai described switching to the smaller plane to go to the Yemeni capital of Morani in the Camaros. It was a night flight, and she remembered that everyone was exhausted. What she says she remembers is looking through the porthole, and the plane, and no one was really acting strange, so she thought it was okay, but the plane started to plunge. It plunged into the ocean. She said she felt an electric shock through her body. She grasped a floating part of the destroyed plane and stayed in the water for 11 hours before being saved by a fisherman. She said, I remember hearing female voices which screamed for help in the ocean at first. And they were screaming in their native language. She then fell asleep, and then she woke up alone. It was so long, I almost gave up hope, she says. I almost gave up hope. But thinking about my mom helped me hold on. I convinced myself that everyone except me had made it home safe. And as the hours passed, she said, I lost track of time when I was in the water. And after her rescue, Baraka was taken to a Morani hospital, and then she was repatriated to France. She had suffered a broken collarbone, a broken hip, and some burns from the jet fuel and other injuries. But during her time in the hospital, and as she was recovering from this ordeal, her family continued to let her believe that her mother was still nearby. And it was that belief that her mother was near, it was that belief alone that helped save her life. In this article, she says, which is now 10 years later, she says, I don't suffer any physical effects, but my mother is gone, and I was very close to her. And she said that and broke down in tears. It was reported that as she gave her testimony of her survival from this plane crash, that the courtroom also broke down in tears. I wanted to know more details, so I ordered the book. The book is in French. There's no translations. So it's slow going for me to read the book. I imagine Google Translate going, please stop trying to speak French. Anyway, I wanted to know more details. And so I'm not here to question the morality or the ethics or even the details of when or how she learned her mother had died. But 152 people perished. But I'm here to say that this is a powerful testimony about what you believe and your ability and how what you believe really drives your life force. This is the story of the power of belief of unconditional love, a love that can carry one through circumstances that are unbearable, a belief that it moves you from giving up on life to holding on. It's an example of unconditional love. It's a true story. There's nothing more powerful than the true story. And if we're lucky in this life, and I believe I've been lucky in this life to experience that idea of unconditional love at least once, that's amazing. But it's the power of disbelief that kept this young girl in the world. Now, believe it or not, Steven Spielberg wanted to, quote unquote, buy her story, but she refused to sell it. And but she did. But the book is Moi Bahia la Miracole. Okay, really bad French, but I'm Bahia the Miracle. That's the name of it. If you speak French, buy the book and give me a call. The real story is about the power of belief, the power of love to save a life. And I think it's residing in this idea of the divine mother, the archetype of motherhood. Unconditional love is a God quality. It's a power we don't talk about very often, but I think it's good to bring it up today and to celebrate it as one of the many ways the divine expresses itself. Unconditional love is forgiving, it's receiving, it's open, it understands, it is patient. It doesn't speak rapidly, it listens, it responds. And I think to myself, is there someone in your life that you need to give some unconditional love to? Maybe it's yourself. Is there somewhere in your life that you need to provide a little forgiveness? Some area when it seems hard and you keep going out, but you find out you can hold on. You know you're not alone. This is the big thing about divine love. Divine love surrounds us always, all the time, all times. We are not alone. The divine feminine is one expression of this unconditional love. Now, a second influence that has been entering my life is the understanding of the teaching of Mary Magdalene. And I found that there are groups of women who retrace her steps through France and through Egypt and the Holy Land. And now I know I'm talking about the divine feminine, but I kind of got stuck on this idea of real people as examples, as demonstrations of the divine feminine. And I know she doesn't represent that pristine virgin birth mother. Man, she's another side of womanhood. However, if you read about her or start studying her life in the Gnostic Bible, you get a different image of who Mary Magdalene is. In my beginnings, because I'm in my beginnings of understanding her and understanding her teachings from the Gnostic Bibles, Mary Magdalene is represented as someone who is always there, present, even-tempered, balanced, a carrier of messages, an important person who is always at the right place at the right time, given the right messages, consistent. And what they were saying about the Gnostic, in the Gnostic Bible, in early Christianity, it was more a verbal tradition and not necessarily so much the written tradition. And some of the stories had to be given and told, and you needed messengers who were consistent, who were even-keeled, and who were there. Now, what does Mary Magdalene, what does her teachings or how she taught in the Gnostic Bible, how can that influence us today? Well, first of all, she asked one question consistently. She was a teacher, and it's funny because she referred to Jesus as the teacher. That's how it's referred to in the scripts that I'm reading. She goes, the teacher says, the teacher says. However, she was also the teacher in these groups. She was challenged quite often. But she always said, she said consistently, did you go within? Did you listen to your inner wisdom? Did you contemplate? that the divine speaks directly to you. And did you go inward, to listen to that, to take that direction? In the gospel of in in the gospel of Mary Magdalene, that message is consistent, and it's one which we hear often in New Thought, that real change does not begin with the actions we can see, but it begins with what forms inside a person. This seemed to be a core message of the Mary Magdalene Gospels, as I am understanding them. And in each dialogue, Mary does not condemn or say something is right or wrong. She simply asks, what does your inner knowing tell you about this? What does your inner knowing tell you about that? You see, the divine feminine is an energy of receptivity. It is one of inner listening. It is one of unconditional love. It is one that has been expressed through the beginnings of time. And it is one, especially when we look at historical figures, I think it's important that we dig deep, that we question the stories that have been given to us, that we look for alternative ideas of way they are represented. And Mary Magdalene is represented as a trusted teacher, leader, confidant, purveyor of the messages of God. She was given several messages directly. So I think it's interesting when we think about the divine feminine that we think of different and alternative perspectives. I think that as we think about this idea that we stay curious when we look for things, we know that God talks to us, and the answers to any questions that we might have, that we have a direct revelation that this is from early Christianity. This is the basis of what Mary Magdalene is teaching. This is from far beyond that, from the Eastern religions. That if we go into this meditative place, if we go into the stillness, if we go into the silence, that the answers are there, that the answers are given. When we turn away from the world, ways of the world, but we turn inward, what messages do we receive? We know what we need to do. We know how we need to do it. So when you sit in stillness, what do you know? What examples can you think of women? When you think of women, when they get together to preserve life, to preserve liberty, preserve love, what power is there in that life-preserving force? We call it the divine feminine. We utilize the architect of the divine mother, one that can bless our lives, and it stands for good. It's all good. So whether or not that was your direct experience with your own mother or not, we can hold these images of the divine feminine that can support and help and create and provide infinite answers and unconditional love. I think one of the most important things, another most important thing from the divine feminine, is this idea of intuitive knowing. It's not just, there's a listening and a contemplation, but there's also an intuitive knowing. That direct revelation is so important. It's that quote unquote gut feeling. We all have it. Doesn't matter what gender you are, what race you are, those answers come. Those answers come to you and you absolutely know that you must do this or that you must do that, and you know exactly how to do it. Recently, my world has been flooded with a lot of Michael Jackson and a lot of Prince, two wonderful musicians that have died. And I've seen the play MJ not on Broadway, but I've seen the play MJ in its touring cast. And I've seen the movie Michael. And one of my favorite lines out of that movie is when Michael says, "We got to do X, Y, and Z." And he gets a lot of stuff against it. He goes, and his brothers and other people are like, "No, no, you can't do this and you can't do that." And then Michael goes, "But if I don't do it, God will give that idea to Prince." Like, that has to be the truest line I've ever heard in the movie, because I believe that is what happens. Divine idea, if you don't catch it, use it, and move it, that divine idea is not, somebody else will catch that divine idea, and that idea will come into form. So when you get that idea, when you get that intuitive hit, move forward, do what you need to do and how you need to do it. The most important thing I want to say today, though, is the idea that God is unconditional, limitless love. And if you need an inspiration on a true story, think of Bahia, who just held on, believing that this idea of mother, this idea that her mother was still there and alive, kept her afloat. If you need something, know that you are surrounded by unconditional love. You are supported by unconditional love. That if this desire in your heart does not hurt anyone else, then it is supported by God, and you can move towards it. And the divine expresses itself as feminine, as masculine, as every single space on that spectrum. It's just our way of understanding it. It's the way our consciousness can comprehend it by putting these labels on it. But it's not a love that is label that has a label. It's not a love that should have a label. So I wanted to bring up a couple of ideas for you to think about. Maybe go on that journey with me and discover a little bit more about Mary Magdalene. Discover a little bit more about the mother archetype. Discover a little bit more about gods and goddesses. I'm learning about so many goddesses and trying to find what is it that they are offering. They're offering creativity, they're offering love, they're offering compassion, they're offering intuition, they're offering love of the earth. It's quite a journey. And today, just celebrate that. Celebrate the love that surrounds you, the love of family, the love of your pets, the love of community. Just celebrate that. Anyway, let's take this message into prayer. So I know that there's only one energy one energy that is back behind all, and it is an energetic force that expresses in multiplicity of ways, but most definitely as one of unconditional and limitless love. And that this love surrounds me and my life, and this love surrounds each and every person listening and their life, that this love uplifts, upholds, inspires, enfolds, moves forward, supports each and every dream. And I'm just speaking my word right here and right now, that as awareness of the divine increases, that life unfolds with ease and it unfolds with grace. As each step is moving more and more and more in the awareness of that is already there, that is always there. I'm grateful and thankful for it. And so I'm grateful and thankful for this expression of the divine, this expression of the divine as mother, as the perfect mother, as womanhood, this expression of the divine as life, as love, as joy. And I'm releasing this word into the law. And together we say, so it is.
And so it
Thank
is.
you.